Welcome to the Upshot, Oldie World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. It is Thursday, December 22nd. I'm Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield, and we've got a fun one today. The Gaffes Bracket is here. Josh, I've been looking forward to this for weeks.
I don't know how I'm going to make it through this show. We went back throughout the year and just there's a lot of funny things that happen in disc golf. We are a long ways. Granted, I mean, funny things happen in like the big sports too, but some of these are just comical.
So we're gonna dive into that in just a moment, but we do actually have quite a bit of news to discuss before we get to that. So let's dive right in. The 2024 major locations have been announced by the PDGA. So we know where all of their majors are going to be heading. And for the purposes of the pro scene, that means Pro Worlds, the U.S. Women's Championship, and then the Champions Cup, sort of. We already kind of knew, but we now have confirmation. It will be remaining in Appling, Georgia at W.R. Jackson at the IDGC again. So that means this coming year and then again in 2024. And the plan is for it to be there forever. 2 weeks after the Masters at the IDGC, the whole deal. So that one's out of the way. But some surprise, perhaps, for Worlds. Lynchburg, Virginia has been announced as the host location for the 2024 World Championships. The TD will be Nate Heinold. And there's a ton of information up on the PDGA site if you want to read more about the bid and other things. The disc golf courses that they're planning to use, I shouldn't say they're considering using, they're planning to use are New London Tech and Ivy Hill. I believe Ivy Hill at the moment is just a temp course, but it's going to be permanently installed soon. And it sounds like these are fantastic high-level courses. I mean, just the lengths alone. I mean, one of them I think is over 11,000 feet, 11,500 for Ivy Hill. They're thinking they can have more than 4,000 spectators there. So, Josh, what do you think about Lynchburg, Virginia?
I don't hate the location as like in a vacuum, right? I enjoy the location in a vacuum. I think the courses are going to be good. It's being run by an experienced tournament director who puts on the biggest event of the year every year in Ledgestone in terms of the number of competitors and such. So I think a lot of things on paper look very good. My biggest problem with it is that it's not in Europe. That's like, I don't know. Do you know if Europe submitted a bid?
I do know.
You do know?
The answer is yes. There was a bid put in by Spin 18, put through by UC Marisma, and I know that at least some people in Europe are pissed that they didn't get the bid. I think there was a lot of expectation that they were going to, given the fact that it's been it's been a long time coming, right, for Europe. But the PDGA has not said anything publicly about the decision or why they went with Lynchburg over the bid from Finland. But it is certainly I was kind of waiting for it to be Finland. This felt like it was the year, but not so.
I'm really disappointed that it isn't. UC is a fantastic tournament director. The European Open is always and has always been one of the most impressive events of the year. It's a major that is run with professionalism and has a lot of spectators. They could do a good job. And I think it is long overdue that the World Championships be held in Europe. And especially when you think about like the PDGA, one of the arguments is when you look at the travel from the United States to Europe for the European Open is that some of the top professionals don't go. And some of the top players, and not even top players, but several players choose not to go because of the cost, which makes a lot of sense. But on the flip side, when you're thinking about the organization that is theoretically representing the worldwide disc golf community and players from across the world, no mid-level European disc golfer is getting the chance to play in the World Championships right now. And I think that those people have, those players have the same right and same claim to getting the opportunity to play at a world championship that requires significant, doesn't require overseas travel as much as the American players. And so I am very disappointed that Europe did not get the opportunity to host Worlds in 2024.
There's a lot of open questions. There's no doubt about that. I've already seen people getting lashing out because Nate Heinold is winning another big bid. Of course, we know he's the president of the board. Now, he recused himself from this process, as you would imagine. I mean, this is not like some, but there are questions. He is involved now, like every year with a major. It feels like, and he's
because he's involved in Champions Cup as well
in 23. Yes.
Oh, but not in 24. You're right.
But I think, well, they don't. I don't believe they named a TD in the documentation. So I don't know.
Okay.
But I understand where people are coming from there. Like Nate Heinold obviously has a lot of power and influence. But on the other hand, like he does put on a lot of large scale events, and there aren't that many TDs that can really handle the job of Worlds. We've seen this, right? We have seen, what have they done? That after 21. 21 were in Utah, right? And, there were good things about that Worlds. There were bad things about that Worlds. And I think one of the issues that it felt like that Worlds had is that there was maybe just not quite enough oversight of the whole, massive amount that has to be organized for an event of that scale.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, keep in mind, they had the challenge of dealing with COVID too. It was brutal. But the next 3 years, 22, Emporia, Doug Bjerkes. 23, coming up next year, Jeff Spring, Vermont. 24, new location. We've never had a PDGA major period in Virginia. But Nate Heinold, we are going to the most experienced TDs in the sport, back to back years. Now, you could definitely argue that UC is on that list.
Yep.
And I would not have quibble. I would not have a quibble with that. But obviously, you have the wrinkle of the prostitution charges and him stepping away from Discmania at a time when this bid was being evaluated. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if that was a decision-making factor, but it had to have been a piece of the decision for obvious reasons. There's optics there at a minimum. So that's an issue. The other hand, we also don't know what was in these bids.
True.
We don't know what was in these bids. I mean, maybe the Lynchburg bid was just that much better. It's certainly possible. Now, I think you make a great case. I stand by what I've said for many years now, which is that we need to have like Worlds in Europe. Mm-hmm. This could have been the year, but maybe they decided it wasn't the year.
I guess the biggest thing that I think of is that you can go back to Lynchburg anytime, right? Lynchburg is not a historic decision. I mean, I know it's the first major in Virginia, but you could have done Lynchburg the year after or the year after that. Nate Heinold doesn't live in Virginia.
Yes, having Nate Heinold run a tournament in Lynchburg is truly something that you could do at any time.
Right. It is like that. That's the what you stick in your back pocket for the year that nobody gives a bid, right? And you're like, oh, no one bid. All right, Heinold, you're running in Virginia this year. That's what that tournament should be, or no qualified bids at least. And when you have a bid, I'm making an assumption that the Europe bid was a qualified bid based on who and what we know of the people that would have submitted that. And the fact that, you chose the copy and paste option over, I think would have been a historic decision is I would like some answers.
We'll see what more comes out. I mean, we literally just got this news not more than a couple hours ago, so we're still digesting it along with everybody. So it is what it is. U.S. Women's is going to be going to Round Rock, Texas, which is just outside of Austin. And they are going to... The bid was put in by a large group. The lead was Mint Discs CEO Zach Jansen, and Wildflower Tour Director Chrissy Fountain, and then a lot of other folks in the area, because of course, U.S. Women's is an enormous tournament with lots of divisions, so it's kind of like there's a lot of different things to manage. They're planning to use 7 different courses, and they want to use Old Settlers Park and a new course being put in at Mint Discs headquarters as the FPO layouts for U.S. women's. So that's the plan for that. And certainly, there's a bunch of language in the PDGA documentation about, one of the things we're evaluating is making sure to put this tournament in places where there's hotbed activity in women's disc golf. Texas obviously qualifies as that.
I think the fact that it's also in coordination, the director of the Wildflower Tour, which is that women's tour in Texas. Is it just Texas or Texas area?
I think it's just Texas. But...
I think so too. I like the move. I think it's I'm excited about this. It's interesting because it's such a low bar that has been set by previous iterations of this tournament in different ways. But on the flip side, it also has raised the expectations about what the correct tournament should be, and means that, you need to do a good job. So
I think there will be more emphasis put on this tournament's execution in future seasons.
Yeah.
The AM and age-based majors are heading to AM Worlds. It's going to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Masters Worlds is going to Emporia, Kansas. Junior Worlds is going to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And U.S. Masters is going to Raleigh, North Carolina. So that rounds out the list for the 2024 PDGA Majors. In sponsorship news, the big one coming out Wednesday, Emerson Keith, 1-year deal with Lone Star Disc. So the Texas-based player going with the Texas-based manufacturer. Not a shock here. This one felt like it was coming. He leaves Latitude 64 after a number of years there. It's a 1-year deal. No real terms announced. There's going to be multiple Tour Series discs. And, same kind of Instagram post we've seen. Holding up the Lone Star shirt. So, Emerson Keith to Lone Star, do you like the move?
I do. I think it's good for Lone Star. I like the idea of grabbing a handful of, top 20 guys and then seeing if one of them can have a breakout performance. It's in a way mimicking the MVP model of grabbing James and then he wins Worlds and then gets it really famous and sells a lot of discs. If you sign, Nico and Emerson and, a throw, I don't know. This is not speculation. This is not rumor, but let's say hypothetically, they also got Anthony Barella and signed all three of them and then hope that one of them, really overperforms. You then have a really bargain that I think you could sell enough plastic to cover all three of them if one outperforms kind of the expectations.
Well, don't you know? A listener told us Anthony Barella is guaranteed to win an Elite Series this year.
And I took the bet in the other direction. So that's
I think it's interesting. Emerson, World's Whisperer, Emerson Keith. Maybe a little shine coming off that title this year, but he's been competitive at the majors. He was fifth at Champions Cup this year. Yeah. It wasn't his best season, but he still made the Tour Championship. Still a couple top fives, and it was on the podium at Des Moines. So he's a really good disc golfer. I think really good disc golfer. In a year where he's got a little more sharpened focus, I could imagine him having, stepping back up and being in that top 20 range rather than kind of the top 30 range.
Yep.
A couple more departures from Innova to note on the FPO side. Stacey Ronsley leaving Innova, but I think certainly much more notably, Lisa Fakis leaving Innova. She feels like somebody who, for me, is synonymous with Innova, but moving on to new pastures. I wonder where Lisa's headed.
Isn't Lisa a Texas-based player too?
She is.
Yeah.
Mint and Lone Star, they got that coin.
Here's a question for you. Lisa leaving feels a lot like Eric Oakley leaving Dynamic Discs, a player who's kind of been around for a while, almost synonymous with the brand that they threw, but and could have a really breakout performance. They still got potential. They're great disc golfers, but I don't expect them to be. I think winning an Elite Series would be a big accomplishment for them. Do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely.
Sentiment?
Definitely. Yeah. Lisa's had some great moments, but she's never, won a big one.
Yeah.
And she came close, right? And we had that amazing Worlds where she really was in a position to maybe contend down the stretch of the tournament. And it all just went wrong on 16. But she's a very good player. I think on the right courses, she can be successful. Has some limitations to her game as well, but will be a good pickup for somebody because she's somebody who's just going to rock solid, going to show up on lead cards on a regular basis.
Also, one of the nicest and kindest people you will ever meet. Maybe a little bit more in line with the family-friendly branding that Lone Star is going for.
So, hey, I will say this. I think the hot stove's going to get hotter, Josh. There's starting to be some buzz around some moves that would turn some heads.
It really would.
So we'll see. We'll see if that comes to fruition, if these are just rumors or if there's truth to them. But I just want people to be prepared for an exciting next couple of weeks. I don't think we're going to get something that, looks like 2021's offseason, which was just, epically crazy. But there are some potential moves brewing, at least on the rumor mill, that would be pretty surprising. So
let's put it this way. Charlie and I are bringing our recording equipment on vacation. So
that's right. We were talking about how, first week of January, maybe we're just going to take it easy, have some pre-recorded show. Not sure. Not sure about that. So we'll see what happens, but looking forward to it. It's possible that even by the time this show airs, there's going to be more news.
Yeah.
Things are moving fast. All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it's time for the Gaffes Bracket. Buckle up, everybody. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport, and you can save right now through December 23rd. 10% off. Just use coupon code UPSHOT, and you can save on limited edition Carltons, limited edition Octothorpes, Deluxe Octothorpes, Ambassador Octothorpes, Deluxe Limited Edition Octahulls. Tons of products on sale. That does not include the new Rufus, but you can get yourself a Deluxe Rufus if you're interested because they're available now. But save on almost everything else. Again, use code UPSHOT at pounddiscgolf.com. Sale ends December 23rd. So get yourself a gift or get a loved one a gift for the holidays. Welcome to the Upshot. Welcome to the Upshot. Welcome back to the Upshot. It is time for the Gaffes and Weird Stuff bracket. Ba-na-na, ba-na-na. So we're not going to give them to you in advance. We want to talk about each matchup individually as we go through. We've got 16 seeds, just like our storylines bracket, but this is the Gaffes storylines. Now, here's the thing, Josh. We can't really pick a, biggest gaffe of the year. I mean, we could, but it's not quite the same thing. So what are the criteria by which you think we should determine the winner of each of these matchups?
Yeah. I think number one of the big criteria needs to be like meme worthy. There are some of these on the list that the memes that came out afterwards were just incredible. So meme worthiness is going to be a big part, I think, of the criteria. We've been laughing for months about some of these things. So I think, the humor side as well. And then this one, Charlie, I think probably something about like, are we going to be laughing about this in the future?
Yeah. Does it have a memorable nature to it?
There we go. Okay, great. Memorable. Anything else that you think needs to be included?
No, I think that's about right.
Okay.
I think that's about right. So look, we're going to have fun with this. Don't take it too seriously, folks. None of this stuff is that serious. It's disc golf. So let's dive in. 1 and 16. I'm going to give us the first two in our pairing, and you won't be surprised to hear what the number one seed is. Nico Locastro losing it at a rules official at the European Open
So you have a penalty stroke.
What?
You have a penalty stroke.
Why?
Excessive time.
Why?
PDGA rules.
Step away from me. Step back.
Then subsequently getting suspended for 9 months, later reduced to 6 months. And really just the entire saga, including him talking on, commenting on Instagram about like an NBA player getting ejected, that like the world's gone soft. If this is the PDGA, they would have banned him for a year. Just there's so much to it. This was such a big story. It made it into our storylines bracket. It's the clear and obvious number 1 seed. That's going up against number 16, which is this.
Birdie look on 16.
Or rather just behind Drew Gibson.
Oh, what a bid.
Meme coming up, Drew. You did it, buddy.
I love you, Drew.
Yes, that is Drew Gibson going to retrieve his disc out of the basket and slipping and falling onto the ground in what was a briefly memed moment from the season. Drew Gibson just going ass over tea kettle. So Nico at the losing it at the rules official versus Drew slipping on his way to the basket. Josh, what do you think?
I think the Drew thing is actually he missed the putt and then like was walking, but then missed and then like swung his leg like to kick the air.
That's right.
And that's when he slipped. Yeah. Look, it is. I think Drew's is meme worthy. Drew's is probably as equally meme worthy as Nico's. But when you think about the memorability of either of these, we're going to be talking about Nico's for years, and it's just compounded by the fact like he just got signed because of his family friendly true nature. And when we were prepping for this, I went through Reddit and just sorted by top posts of the year, and the first funny one was like Nico and a Nico meme yelling at somebody to step off. So
yeah, the one that I remember the most, and maybe this is the one that you saw, it's like the guy at the urinal.
This is the
and
one.
Then Nico comes in. It's like a huge row of urinals. It's like 10 urinals. And Nico comes all the way up to the next to the one next to the guy. It says, "Step away from me, bro."
The number 1 seed takes this match.
It has to. It has to. Look, Drew slipping and falling was kind of funny in like a haha banana peel way, but the Nico thing is just it's got legs, right? I think this is going to make a run. It's the number 1 seed after all. All right, Josh, what's next?
Yeah, number 8, U.S. Women's Caddy Book. Remember, this is the one that looked like it was done in Paint.
We're going to be
Microsoft
putting
Paint.
If you're not watching on YouTube and you're listening to your favorite podcast app, I would encourage you to check out the YouTube, like and subscribe while you're there, because we're going to put up videos and clips of these as we talk about them.
The 9 seed is the Dynamic Disc Choppers coming and flying Ricky and Kona in. In one of the strangest press conferences we've ever seen.
It's like CSI Miami, like sunglasses, like in the helicopter. Okay. This is the world's worst caddy book. I mean, I don't know that there's ever been a worse one. I've certainly never seen a worse one. The choppers were very funny though, and like, how many people looked at the U.S. Women's Caddy Book? I mean, the problem is it just doesn't feel like it's going to have that staying power. Like the helicopter. They're both funny. I think the Caddy Book was funnier.
I think so too.
It's just like so bad that you can't even believe it. It's unfathomable. The helicopters, like at the time, it kind of felt like, wow, like they're really doing this. But like, I feel like it's sort of slowly aged poorly. Like to have them coming in on a chopper. I think the funnier thing and the more memorable thing here, though, is going to be the choppers.
I don't think everybody, like you said, not everybody looked at the U.S. Women's Caddy Book. If honestly, if they weren't a listener of this show, I don't know how much it was talked about elsewhere.
Good point.
So, to us, it's hilarious, but to the general disc golf community, I think you're right. The choppers probably takes it.
All right, next up, the 5 versus the 12.
This one's hard.
In the number 5, we have the OTB Big Money Skins broadcast. Or maybe the broadcast that wasn't. After hours of delays. They finally got a stream up, and it was like sepia tone, single camera, shaky cam. And then
no audio.
Big Germ
Yeah, but
and like a
sometimes.
dude who
Anyways,
knew nothing
Canute
about
and
disc
Ron
golf,
off the tee.
who at least was a professional
He's got good
broadcaster, but
movement
was
on
like
this one.
clearly thrown into just the
Let's go
world's
back
worst
in balance.
situation, trying to hold together this broadcast.
There you have it. Waiting for some updates.
You're wanting me to speak, aren't you?
I don't know. Somebody.
You're looking for some-
I need.
I thought I'd hold on there for a while just to see how long you'd stew.
I am waiting to get some updates.
I mean, it was just people were losing their mind. They charged money for this product. It was a total
They
scam.
refunded money for this.
It was
product.
Firefest of disc golf. I mean, there's however you want to look at it. It was a complete disaster. And they built it up so much. I mean, it was brutal. In the number 12, this one we came up with late, but it's a sneaky good one. PDGA Radio, our fellow podcast, has a Twitter account, and somebody forgot to switch their Twitter accounts. And one of the hosts of PDGA Radio went onto Twitter and was replying to some political comments from President Biden, including this one, where Biden said, "It's now law that big corporations pay a minimum 15% tax on the profits they report to their shareholders, instead of getting away with paying $0 in federal income taxes." And PDGA Radio replied, "Great. And exactly how does this translate into my life being better? Because I suspect my roads will continue to long for repair, my kids' teachers will still long for supplies, and my gas will stay higher than high." That's been deleted, by the way.
I think the best part, I think it happened twice.
There were
it?
multiple tweets.
There were multiple tweets under this account, which is like compounds. Man, I love a good account mix up. It happens all the time in social
It's happened
media.
to the best of us.
Yes. And man, I think it's hilarious. But the OTB big money skins, like for the next time they try and do an event like this, they are going to have to work so hard to get rid of the stain of the disaster that was this year. And it's so unfortunate because like big money, like skins is such a popular disc golf content. And it was just so bad.
I like there would be shots where like it would be really zoomed in tight, and like you'd see the person like lining up a putt. There would be no context for who it was or what they were doing, and they would do their putt, and then they would just walk out of the frame, and the camera wouldn't move. It would just like continue to show the static shot from behind.
I think there's probably more time of a fountain at that one tournament than every cut to the fountain at Fountain Hills on Joe Mez's YouTube history combined.
I think this one's obvious, right?
I think so too. It's a good matchup. But
It's fun. Like this Twitter thing is funny, but like it was not memorable enough that we didn't even consider it originally. We had to like dig it up. So sounds like OTB Money Skins is moving on.
the number 4 seed is Umbrella Gate. This is, remember, Ricky coming down the stretch at GMC, and his disc kicks an umbrella that a spectator had leaned on the OB stake and leaned inbounds. Like, it's not even like it's like on the line. It's inbounds.
Umbrella. No way.
Ricky goes on to win this tournament, possibly as a result of this. The 13 seed is Joe Mez's attempt at live commentary at the World Championships. Taking place in the fishbowl that was their audio equipment.
Another live fail.
Wouldn't be Emporia without a little bit of wind, too. The wind's picked up today. You can see the flag from the back. Paul puts this one out nice, gets the rise out of it. I mean, this is going to be almost picture perfect for probably a side.
Yep.
I would think.
Windiest round of the tournament.
Hey, live disc golf is harder than it looks, folks.
Paul McGilvary in space.
Yeah. and really, really loud audience laughter.
Really far away because his mic wasn't on. Yeah, like it was just like the audio mixing was totally brutal.
Oh man.
Okay, so look, Umbrella Gate is not one of the things that people are going to be thinking of first when they come into this bracket, and for good reason. I mean, it was visually iconic. It was like this critical moment late in a tournament, and I think in future rounds this could be held back because it didn't really impact the situation, arguably. Because it's not like Ricky made the putt. He didn't make the putt.
Right.
And then he ended up taking a big number anyway. And the argument is like, well, what would have happened if he was in the OB? Maybe it's even worse. But when maybe he makes the putt because he's more focused. I mean, there's all these kinds of things, whatever. But the gall of the person who did this, who has never been named, but you know who you are, to put not their beer can in live play and their umbrella on the, it's one thing to put it on the stake at all, but to put it out into live play, what are you thinking? What is going through your head? That makes no sense. Oh my God. It makes less sense than carrying a full bag of discs at a tournament.
Oh, don't get me started.
So look, Umbrella Gate's got to win here. I mean, the Jomez thing, all it does for me is it proves that live is hard. And, people learn that the hard way sometimes.
Someone made a comment to me today, though, when the joke was like when Discraft was picking up Paul Macbeth. And it's the meme where mom's like, but we've got Paul at home. And then it's Paul Ulibarri talking in space. I think it'd be a quality meme. I'm not one to make memes myself, but if someone wanted to make that, I think it'd be a good one.
All right. We're moving on. Is this mine? Yes. Number 3, Elaine King texting Paige's caddy about the rule violation currently being committed by Kristen Tatar in an attempt to try to diffuse the problem, but actually ultimately creating the problem. Kristen Tatar's daughter, who was serving as a caddy, which was illegal because of her age, she had to go back behind the ropes, and Tatar ultimately lost the tournament on the final hole. And then it came out that this happened, and the reason that the only reason it came to light at all is that Elaine King texted Paige's caddy, and ended up becoming this thing. So there's that against number 14 seed, which is Paige Pierce. It's a page on page here, getting essentially kicked off of the Emporia Country Club course. She attempted to play the course during a time when it was closed and only available to country club members. And there was an entire altercation on the fairway. She got a cart. She wasn't supposed to have a cart. Somebody came out screaming at her. And she ends up having to leave. The police were called. Yeah. Imagine calling the police on Paige Pierce, who's like 5'4". That is what happened. And so this is a spicy battle. Josh, what do you got for us?
This is a spicy battle. But let's remember, the reason that Elaine was texting Paige's caddy was because Kristen's daughter is like 3 years too young to be a caddy, technically. No disruption. She was being perfectly polite and professional, and Elaine had to take issue with that, using knowledge that she knew Kristen's daughter's age, right? It's not like we're talking like a 5-year-old even, because it was just completely obvious on camera. Elaine knew Kristen's daughter's age, and that is what, and she, I don't know any other word, but had the gall to text the lead competitor's caddy in order to report.
And this hasn't been said yet, but it needs to be said. She was in the broadcast booth during this.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yes, I didn't even mention that. This is arguably the 1 seed, right? Imagine, take everything else, take all of our other silly things that have happened, and imagine them happening in other sports. And you go, yeah, okay, I could see it, right? Like Nico blowing up at an official at an unreasonable amount. Sure. Welcome to sports.
Umbrella Gate analog, Jason Kidd intentionally spilling a soda on the court to get a free timeout. and then getting caught for doing it.
Yeah. Great example. Alternate account texting. Lots of other good examples of things like this happening. But if a broadcaster were to text the opposing team's coach and be like, they got 12 guys on the field, quick, like that commentator would never call a professional sporting event for the rest of their life. It's unbelievable. This one, I'm getting heated again, and I forgot just how angry we were about this because it's just so outrageous. I think this one could arguably be higher seated. Look, Paige getting kicked out of Emporia is great, but it's got to go to Elaine King on this.
It does. And you know, the Emporia thing, like, it ultimately, it was just kind of a nothing burger, the whole situation. It was just totally ridiculous. If anything, it makes the Emporia Country Club look bad to me because they like totally freaked out in a situation that didn't warrant it. But, you know, there's like a lot of other themes going on there. But yeah, look, to defend Elaine a little bit, she wasn't trying to get Tristan in trouble, but
she wasn't.
The act of doing what she did created a situation that made it a problem when it didn't need to be, and like created an enormous amount of undue stress. And this was never going to be a thing if that didn't happen. So anyway, it moves on. Crazy one. Yeah. Crazy one. All right.
Crazy.
What do we got?
All right. The next one features Paul Macbeth in both instances.
Ooh.
The first one is Paul Macbeth and the Brody beef, which I feel like we don't get inter-disc golfer drama that bubbles to the surface very often. It's usually kind of kept on the quiet. That's why like the Evelina talking about Holly Finley and Missy Gannon kind of story is so rare because like disc golfers don't talk about each other like that. They travel together. They have to be around each other. It makes sense that Paul and Brody, you know, two of the largest names in the sport, are the ones who have that, especially given their relationship. But remember all the tweets where like they were just shooting shots back and forth, and Brody's like, "Come on debate night, we'll clear the air." And like, because that's what Brody's response is to
literally everything.
Yeah, I really just don't like In-N-Out burgers. You want to come on debate pod? We'll settle this right now. And then so that's the 6th seed. The number 11 seed is the Macbeth 6X merch that dropped right after Worlds. That was so bad and so made fun of that Paul and Hannah wore them to an ugly sweater contest because they saw the jokes that were circulating.
Which to be fair is so awesome, and they totally nailed it with like the whole thing. And yeah, but the merch left something to be desired. Look, Paul and Brody beef is so good because it's not just that they were beefing. It's that they were formerly friends and business partners, and then the business had the falling out, and it was like, it's kind of weird for Paul to like step away from this. It's kind of a weird situation. Like that doesn't seem like a thing Paul would really do. And he's talking about how he's got too much on his plate and he doesn't have time, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, eh. And then it turns out that no, like there's beef, and they're like sniping at each other on Twitter. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. The merch, you know, it's still going to sell a zillion merches. I feel like this is a classic first round loser.
Yep.
In fact, I just saw, who was it? The NBA player, Markkanen, was walking into the stadium.
Yeah,
he had a Macbeth like 6X thing on underneath his jacket. You couldn't really see it. Like somebody sleuthed it crazy.
Yeah.
But you know, if you got NBA players buying the merch, like it must not be that bad.
Yeah, I think you're right. So Paul and Brody beef moves on.
All right, we got Macbeth again here at the number 10 seed, but first, number 7 at the Beaver State Fling. The disc putted into the basket by Corey Ellis.
I wish you guys could see Nathan's face
falls
right now.
out of the bottom of the basket.
So that fell out.
It didn't go off the
bottom of
edge.
the
It didn't go through the chains. It went into the basket, settled into the basket, and then fell directly out of the bottom of the basket. And there was nothing he could do about it. He had to put it in again. That goes up against number 10. Macbeth ended up on the Hall of Fame ballot this year and didn't get selected. The Hall of Fame committee changed its rules after this, making it so that Macbeth won't be eligible for like a decade. Clearly, there was some dissent internally on the Hall of Fame committee about whether a player as young and as active as Macbeth should be getting into the Hall of Fame right now anyway. This all came to light when Macbeth posted on Instagram, "Guess I'm not good enough to be a first ballot Hall of Famer," or something like that, at PDGA. And I was like, what? And there's a whole story up. You can read all about it. But yeah, he will not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That is true. He won't.
The disc falling out of the bottom of the basket is funny because I try and think of comparable sports examples where like I just can't. It's like a NBA player falling through the floor or like having like boards fall or something. I can't even think of an example like that kind of equipment failure.
Shattering the basket on a dunk.
Yeah, but I don't even think that's the equipment failure's fault. Like. Because the problem is like you can dunk still and you still get the points for that.
Right.
Right. and it's something like you could have checked in advance. It's like if there was a giant crack, like a windshield crack across the backboard, and the NBA was like, "It's fine. We're fine with this." And then it shatters, right? That would be.
I promise you there's some example from Major League Baseball that would match this. That like just some bizarre moment where a thing happened that should have been an out or it should have been a hit and it wasn't because of something totally ridiculous.
Yeah. I think maybe like fans grabbing foul balls that were otherwise going to be caught.
Sure. Okay.
Is a close analog. It's good. But the fact that the Hall of Fame committee had to change their rules because they got this one so wrong by putting Macbeth on the Hall of Fame ballot this early is like this is going to be something that we talk about when Macbeth's actual Hall of Fame ballot chance comes up.
Yeah, like be in the documentary.
It will.
Macbeth was inducted unanimously into the Hall of Fame in 2037, but it actually wasn't his first time on the ballot. In 2022, you know,
if disc golf becomes popular, you are going to have this question in a brewery doing trivia night. Which famous Hall of Fame, like, you know, in what year did Paul Macbeth get slighted because he was still an active player from the Disc Golf Hall of Fame?
Yeah. By the way, they did the right thing. He shouldn't have been on the ballot. It makes no sense that was even a possibility. But it's still hilarious.
Yeah, so I think this is kind of a weak matchup, but I think I give it to the Macbeth Hall of Fame controversy.
Oh, I don't agree. I think the disc falling out of the bottom of the basket is so wacky and so funny and memed that I think it's like you have a case for longevity because of the Macbeth thing coming back in the future,
Sure.
but the disc falling out of the basket is totally ridiculous. It's comedy.
You're right about that.
Corey reaches down to pick up his mini and then he looks back up and he's like, I'm not going to say the word. And like has to go and put it back in. And there was no recourse. They didn't give him the stroke back. How is that possible?
All right, I'm fine going with that one. That one definitely wins in the funny meme worthy category though. All right, our final matchup. This one we've got the number 2 seed UC coming out with an announcement that he solicited a prostitute in Sweden and was stepping away from Discmania for a time in the middle of their world ballot or world's bid. That is going up against the this one is so funny to me. Like the week before the Disc Golf All-Star event, they come out and they're like, we now have all-star alternates who were sort of allowed to compete in the all-star event, but sort of not. And it just, during the drafting period, you had Yuli sitting in there with the white t-shirt, the chain, the backwards cap. And I'm like, why are you even here? You're not an all-star. And they had like even teams and then had to find a way to fit in these all-stars. It just reminds me how far we have to come in professional.
Like
disc
people's
golf
feelings
still.
were hurt because they weren't an all-star, so the tour was like, yeah, okay, like you could be an all-star too. You're an all-star in our hearts.
Like, do you put a social media post out like, congratulations to our alternates?
And it's not like anybody even dropped out. Like they already had the full lineup.
It wasn't, here's our alternates in case of injury or unable to attend. It wasn't announced at the same time as the rest of the All-Stars. It was just before their event. Hey, these guys could sort of participate and they're now alternates. Congratulations.
Oh my gosh. That was too much. Oh God. So funny. Very funny. Less meme worthy because it wasn't really like publicly discussed.
It wasn't.
And I don't think it's going to have any longevity whatsoever. So I'm falling back on the criteria here because the funny factor is huge. You see the prostitute, not really funny. Not so funny. Definitely meme worthy. And definitely memorable. I got to go 2 out of 3. I got to go with UC on this one.
I do too. But the All-Star and the All-Stars kicking off the year. What a great way to start the year.
Okay, we move on to round number 2. Back to the top of the bracket. We've got the 1 versus the 9. It's Nico versus the DD Choppers in the hype video. Josh?
Yeah, man, you still have to give this to Nico. And it's in part because of who Nico is, right? This is Nico's brand, that there is already a YouTube compilation of Nico getting angry at disc golf. And then for it to culminate in this at a major nonetheless, and just in the way, just absolute hilarious way that it happened, that Nico hits these criteria very well, and it's going to be hard to knock Nico off, I think.
I have nothing to add. The choppers were a funny, lighthearted moment. The Nico thing is a gift that keeps on giving.
All right. The next up matchup, the 5 OTB Big Money Skins broadcast versus Umbrella Gate.
Wow. Umbrella Gate wins because it happened at an elite tournament. And it's just... It's visually iconic. The Big Money Skins thing was a total fiasco, but like Umbrella Gate, like it has a name. It's the only gate of the year. Think about that. We have no other gate. I never heard anybody say UC Gate.
Nope.
I never heard anybody say Nico Gate, but we got Umbrella Gate. That's enough for me to move it on just like that.
Here's my one contention with you.
Okay.
It would be number 1 if there wasn't already perhaps one of the greatest sport gates in the history of sports that exists in disc golf. That's right. I'm talking about Chipmunk Gate. It's like Umbrella Gate, but better because it involves a chipmunk just flipping through the air after the disc.
Well, how about Railroad Tie Gate? That was a good one too.
Oh, that one was a good one. So my point is, like, Umbrella Gate is good, and it's going to make the list of gates that we go back and watch. But the OTB Big Money Skins, it involves one of the largest disc retailers in the sport, who is a title sponsor of an Elite Series event. It involves one of the largest post-production companies that is known for their skins events. It is at Eagles Crossing, the place heralded as the future of professional disc golf, an oasis where people will come to watch professional disc golf for years to come. And then they just put on that fiasco.
Yeah, and they're promising like the most groundbreaking, most epic live stream that disc golf has ever seen. They're bringing in a production truck and an army of people, and they got the world's best cameras and like. It was like after that, people were like, "Thank God for Disc Golf Network." Like I've been complaining all these years, and little did I know.
I want Disc Golf Network to make an ad for this and be like, tired of live coverage, it looks like this, and then do 30 seconds of that coverage. Come to the Disc Golf Network and then just show a sick highlights package after.
I still got to vote for Umbrella Gate though.
Oh,
I just think
we don't have a tiebreaker. This one is your pick. Like, it's your turn. I present you pick, so I will default to you because I think we have an unbreakable tie on this one.
Wow, you feel strongly. The
OTB Big Money skins. I still have a screen clips on my phone that I show people from how bad that was.
I will give you this.
I'm good to go.
It's the funnier one. It's the funny. You feel so strongly. I feel like I got to give it to you. Umbrella Gate. The thing about Umbrella Gate is it wasn't really that funny. It wasn't that funny. It was memed. Arguably will be memorable. I feel like they're equal in the memorable category, but the funny guy to go to Big Money skin. So you know what? You talked me into it.
All right. The other thing about Umbrella Gate is like so many people were quick to defend that it didn't affect the results, and I think it might have been different if it had very clearly affected results.
It was totally ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
Oh man. All right, next up, Elaine King versus Paul and Brody's beef.
The Paul and Brody beef is good. I think there is opportunity for it to continue to develop. You get Brody and Paul on a lead card together or something, and it could really get real spicy. But this is like, welcome to Brody's brand, right? Where he is kind of antagonistic and is kind of poking at different people. I still contend nothing like the Elaine King fiasco would ever fly in professional sports this way. I just cannot even think of a comparable example. So for me, it's got to be the Elaine King texting Paige's caddy.
Yeah, the thing about the Paul Brody beef, it doesn't have a lot of legs. It happened. We know it's there, but we haven't seen them going at it any further than that.
Right. Paul didn't take a swing at Brody or something.
It hasn't gone any further. Like if this was like an ongoing thing where we were seeing stuff all the time, I think I might think it's a little bit different. But the texting thing, I mean, just like the whole way that went down, and like it was like a bad game of telephone with everybody. Yeah. It was bad.
It was bad. All right, the final matchup: disc falling out of the bottom of the basket at Beaver State Fling, or UC soliciting a prostitute in Sweden.
I gotta go with UC. I just think the magnitude of the like memorable factor here is too much on that side, and the disc falling out, funny moment, but we're not going to really remember it that much.
I'm going to make one devil's advocate point, and then you can tell me from there. I feel like the UC thing went away really fast, though. Like, I don't feel like it's talked about. UC is a very well-respected individual in the disc golf community for his role in European disc golf. And maybe it's still talked about a little bit over there, but I feel like it kind of disappeared. I could see it being the case where, I don't know. I'm trying to think of, but I mean, I guess like, I can't even think of a good example. Didn't Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, have some charges of soliciting prostitutes down in Florida? I think something like that. that's kind of my point. Is like I feel like, especially because UC is much better liked than Robert Kraft, rightfully so. I feel like this one's going to kind of go away, and as is the disc falling out of the bottom of the basket.
Right.
So when I think of the funny factor is kind of the decider, then I like the disc falling out of the basket, but the magnitude of the UC thing is.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. The problem is that, like, while people may not be talking about it on a regular basis, and I largely agree with you, and I think I think ultimately UC will start to return to. Maybe he'll never be quite as in public as he was in the past. It's possible,
Sure,
but I think he'll start. He's going to return to normal operations at Discmania if he hasn't already. He's going to still be running the European Open. Like, I don't think he's going to like disappear from disc golf. I mean, this is more, and a lot of people said this at the time, it's like largely a personal matter to deal with. But I don't think it's going to ever go away completely. I think people are going to remember that this happened. Are people really going to remember the Beaver State Fling disc falling out of the basket?
no, not at all.
And like the fun, I give you this, it's funnier that the disc fell out of the basket. That was so crazy.
Yes.
That was such a wacky moment, right? If we're talking wacky, there's no question that wins. But like, I don't know. I feel like I'm being drawn towards the news story as opposed to the wacky criteria of funny, meme-worthy, and memorable.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I gotta go disc on the basket. It is a wacky bracket after all. It's a Gaffes bracket.
I'm trying to think. Yeah. Mark Cuban solicits a prostitute. Are we like? How much are we really talking about? I don't.
I mean, I think it would be big news. I don't mean to diminish, like, but it is the one thing in this bracket that really feels like it has heft and weight beyond like just being a silly thing. Like a lot of this stuff is just silly, and this is not, and that's making me want to pick it. But really, it means it should lose.
That's kind of how I feel.
So it's losing.
So it's losing. All right.
Back to the top.
We got our
We are in the
semifinals.
semifinals. It's Nico's blow up of the European Open taking on the Big Money Skins broadcast.
To me, I will hold a special place in my heart for the OTB Big Money Skins as long as I live. But I think in the collective general conscience, Nico probably, especially if disc golf gets a point where we have actual officials and marshals, blowing up and getting angry at an official is just part of sports. And it's unique right now because of the way, because it was paired with the rules problems of like enforcing rules. And so Nico just like swinging a hammer around, like, don't you dare call football on me. Like, time violation. And the stopwatch. I forgot the stopwatch too. I feel like Nico's got to take it, though. I still find probably find OTB Big Money Skins to be the funniest thing on this bracket.
But I think that I mean, some of the stuff with Nico is so funny too.
Oh, it is.
Like him being like, step away from me while simultaneously like closing the gap and creating the distance, and then like following him around. It's just comedy, dude. It's comedy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with you that you find the other thing funnier, but I think that when you talk about funny, meme-worthy, and memorable, the Nico thing is like going to have legs for years.
It really is.
And so it moves on here to the final, and it's no surprise.
This other side of the semifinal bracket, this is a Lane King texting Paige's caddy versus the disc falling out of the bottom of the basket, which I got props to the bottom of the basket thing. The 7 seed making a run to the semifinals.
Yeah, but I do think it's going to end up losing here.
I think so too.
If like bizarre was one of the criteria, then maybe it could continue.
Mm-hmm.
Although both things could be considered bizarre. It's just like the way that whole thing happened. Oh man, it was just too much, man. I just feel like it's pretty memorable, and it's extremely meme worthy.
Oh yeah,
and it's funny. It's arguable. Both things are sort of funny. They're not like haha funny. But I gotta go with a Lane King texting Paige's caddy here because it's just like, it's such a bizarre and like we don't need to rehash it, but it's got to move on, in my opinion.
All right, we're in the finals. I have
these were easily the two clear defining things of the year in the wacky category.
They happened at majors. Both of them. I mean, yes, they held some weight. So I'm curious, Charlie, which way do you lean in your first instinct?
Nico.
You know, I go towards Elaine King.
Interesting.
And I have a proposal.
Okay.
I say let's put up a Twitter poll and a Discord poll and let other people decide which one they think is better.
You're saying we shouldn't finish out the bracket right here.
Let's not finish out the bracket. I think either one of these could easily win. I want to know what our listeners think is the funnier of the two. So I want to go Twitter, Facebook, Discord. We'll put up a poll and you can vote for which one you think is funnier and should be winning our Gaffes Bracket of the year.
All right.
What do you think?
I'm okay with it, especially if you're on the other side and we don't agree.
Yeah.
We'll let the people decide.
That's right.
It's only right. And you know what? If the poll doesn't go like we want, we'll just pull an Elon and decide that it means something else to us. That is going to do it for our Gaffes Bracket. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it. We certainly did. And a couple quick honorable mentions. Mm-hmm. Some folks sent in some things. Luke Sampson got a black ace. Weird, definitely. Didn't quite qualify for our bracket, but it was a weird one. And then James Conrad's anger issues as like an overall category of things. Very meme.
Yes.
Funny, but also sort of like fabricated by the internet as opposed to being an actual thing that happened. But I definitely want to give it a shout out because I think it was a good thing. It would be like James like lightly punching his leg when he made a bad shot, and it would be like,
it's impressive.
Get James off the course. The PDGA needs to suspend this man. He's out of control.
It's impressive how well the internet kept this alive. Like those typically die out. You know what? Was that this year? Did we not mention the hot dog bandit?
Oh, the hot dog bandit. I do think that was this year.
I think that's what I thought. I was thinking in my head it was last year, but I don't think so. I think
that was the beginning of this season.
Hot dog bandit also gets an honorable mention. Definitely funny, definitely meme worthy. It's gonna die.
You're never already dead.
This is the last time you're ever going to hear about the hot dog bandit.
It was dead until you said something. You revived it. You resuscitated it.
My apologies. Someone tattooed DNR on that hot dog, and let's just let that go away.
Oh my god. Jesus. Okay, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you for so much for tuning in. Let us know what you think. What did we miss? I'm sure we missed something hilarious. Shoot us an email, upshot@ultiworld.com. And we'll be back with you next week with our Holiday Roundtable episode. And we're going to be ready for, we got our mics with us. We're ready for some emergency podcasting. But we are going to be planning to take next week off of a normal show schedule. So just want to let you know that. And either way, we'll talk to you next week. And then we'll see you in the new year in 2023.
All right, the next one. Man, we should put my yawns on this list.